Church intro video! And here's where I typically light my incense, but I did so about 5 minutes ago, so oops.
Oh, it's already lit.
So, I'm not gonna have incense halfway through. So
Hmm.
if I start screaming at you, it's your fault.
It's my fault.
Mhm.
How is that my fault?
Because I didn't light my incense on time.
Oh, you lit it early. Why are you reading the card already?
I'm not! Why did I do that? I don't know, man.
Now you gotta put that in the back and pull a new card.
We're at 4.5 minutes. I broke the rules,
Fair
guys.
that you get a primer.
I broke the rules, y'all.
You broke the rules.
Didn't even know there were rules, but I broke them.
Make the rules up as we go along.
That's how rebellious I am. I'm breaking the non-existent rules. Look out.
Breaking the non-existent rules. Well, I don't know. Should it be a blind react, or should the person who pulls the card be able to prepare ahead of time?
No, I
think
agree. I agree. It
Yeah.
should be blind.
We get
just-
more genuine answers if it's blind.
I just
right?
didn't think and picked it up, and because it's right in front of me, and so I just was
Yeah,
like, "Ooh,
so you just started reading it.
there's a thing in front of me. I must read that."
Yeah, I get that. I do. I understand. So, hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 40 of the Berean Manifesto, Faith, Hope, and Love for the Modern Christian. In this first 5 minutes, we're just kind of hanging
Warm
out,
up.
talking, warming up, waiting for people to show up. This is our pre-warm-up, because then once we go live, then we warm up talking about our weeks and things like that. We got Zadie joining us on Twitch. Just so everybody knows that's listening, we do record this live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch on Sunday evenings at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can go and watch the video as we're recording it live, and then you can participate typing in the chat. And we've got it all set up to where we can see all that's put in on our Discord channel, and then we can reply back. If you'd like to know more about the Discord channel, you can go to our website, ekk.house, and send me an email, and I will get you an invite to the Ecclesian House server, because I never figured out what channel to send people to from the website. I was still writing the rules and all that, and then I just never revisited it.
I was like,
we
we did it for the.
Yeah.
Nope, that's the other Discord.
No, we did it for something else. We got H Puff Phoenix joining us on Twitch. What's up, Puff? How you doing? Are you recovering from your surgery? What are you shaking your head for?
Not Puff.
Not Puff?
No.
Why not Puff?
I don't like that.
It's like Puff the Magic Dragon.
No.
Biggs on Twitch says, "Hey."
I don't. Oh no, he did say hey. No, he did say hey
He said, "Hey."
instead of hey. I was like, Dad wouldn't. Oh well, never mind.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't say it that way. That's why it was so funny. Because it was so uncharacteristic. It would be more like, "Hey."
No, it'd be more like,
Hey, how you doing?
just,
No? Not how
Just-
you doing?
just.
Zadie likes my whole Puff the Dragon thing, who lives by the sea. And H-Puff Phoenix says, just say Phoenix, not Puff. She wants to be known as Phoenix. And that's cool. I'll call you Phoenix.
Just don't call her
Yeah.
late for dinner.
Whoa!
Well, you know that you can call me anything you want. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Right. I used to tell people when I was working at that big mega church, you can call me anything you want as long as it's encouraging. Like, don't call me stupid, don't call me crazy, don't call me lazy. But if you want to call me chopped beef, I don't care. Make up any nickname you want. I just pulled one out of the air there, just poof. And chopped beef is what came out. All right, how many seconds we got before we switch from?
That's a good question. I stopped looking. 1.
Zadie on Twitch says, Pastor Nooms, they can't hear you very well.
Can't hear me. It's
Yeah.
It's hitting in the yellow. Are you sure? It's showing that it's loud.
And Biggs says he's gonna call me pork chop.
Try
Thank you, Biggs.
Try again. Can you hear me now?
Pork chops are delicious.
Is my microphone silly?
I can hear you well. Oh, I didn't switch to my headphones. You're probably getting echo.
I'm actually not, that I've noticed. Yeah, well, you know, I moved it closer to my face, so maybe that'll help.
Maybe.
I am noticing I'm not hitting the yellow too much. Let's try that. Maybe that'll be a little better. I find it kind of interesting, the fact that you were like, how many seconds are we at? I was like, oh, I'm not looking anymore. 2, 1. Okay, great.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you loud and clear in my headphones. Now
I'm glad.
See if that makes a difference.
What?
Zadie, can you hear him better now? Like maybe my microphone was picking him up and then his system was canceling it out.
That could be true. I don't know. Actually,
it was hearing my speakers.
My things aren't bouncing like they normally do.
There you go. Maybe your battery's low on your headphones?
No, it's...
Yeah, and I was telling you earlier that I was having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, you were.
Did the gain get turned down on your little...
I'm looking. But we can continue talking while we go. Yes.
Biggs says you sound fine. Biggs on Twitch says you sound fine. It's weird. All right, well, other than sound problems, I guess we're ready to start talking. How was your week, Pastor Nims?
Oh, gross.
Your week was gross?
Gross. Okay, so that should be much better.
What was wrong with it?
It was using the microphone on my webcam. Because the computer decided that for some reason when it never does that.
It must have been when we switched from Discord to Teams earlier.
Okay. I guess that maybe that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just, or I'm just tired and not talking very loud. Zadie says she can't hear me from the couch when usually she hears me from my office and then hears me from in there. So maybe I'm just not whooping it today. I'm not sure what whooping is, but my week was pretty good. Lots of stuff at work. I'm doing this a lot tonight, which is making my camera go in and out. But so I'll try to stop that.
And by this he means swiveling his chair back and forth.
Yeah. I whip my chair back and forth. I whip my chair back and forth.
I whip my chair back and forth.
So it was pretty good. I was in a meeting earlier this week, and I do that with my chair a lot. And I look, and me and the person I'm in the meeting with are actually in sync, swiveling our chairs, because I guess I didn't know he did it too. I hadn't really paid attention. But then all of a sudden I look, and I can see his chair going whoop, 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 at the same time. And I'm like, was he doing that before me or after me? Like, who started that? Because it's funny. Well, no, work was good this week. Sarah had her first full week of school. Rain is starting on Monday, so both the girls are back in school. Yeah, that was pretty much my week. And
cool.
I've killed 76 people and died 15 times from the war that I won't say we started, but was started.
Oh no, we started it in response to.
Well, do you really start the war if you tell someone, if you don't do this, if you do this thing, we are going to declare war? I mean, and they do that thing, isn't them actually just asking for it, not
no,
you starting it?
That implies you have some kind of power over them.
I do.
We don't have power over them. That's
Oh.
why we had to go to war.
Oh. Okay.
We have no authority over them. That's why we're having to take action.
The responses I'm getting makes me seem like I have tons of power over their
Right?
gameplay.
Man, they're acting like we're a huge alliance ruining their days every day. And it's just the two of us
two
hitting
people,
all, what?
50,
Subtract
60,
59 of them?
60, well,
There's
yeah.
63 in their alliance, and there's 3 of them that we're not hitting.
Yeah, so 60 people.
But one of those 3 isn't even playing right now. He's tired of the game, and he's just holding on until the TNG arc is over, and then he's planning on piecing out altogether.
Oh.
So there's the one guy that we're not hitting, and the 2 guys that are there on loan from their original alliance to get in-game particles that we're not hitting. So
how was your week?
My week is great. My kill count is up to 125. Big says TNG. That's the Next Generation arc. Yeah. My kill count's up to 125. Now my death count is up to 15 today, as of like an hour ago. So our death counts are the same. We've both died 15 times, but I've killed 125 ships. Mainly mining ships and 1 warship. In 3 days?
3 days or so, yeah.
Today 3? Today's day 3 of this war that we're in.
Yeah. I've had some interesting conversations in the past 3 days.
It's been interesting. It's like they've never fought a war before. They don't understand what being in a war means. And it's funny to get the conflicting comments from people like, honestly, you're a little 2-person war. I'm not really that worried about it. And then that same person coming and going, you're harassing me and need to stop. And I'm like, well, which is it? Are you not that worried about it? Or do I have the ability to harass you even though there's only 2 of me? Pick a concept there, bud.
Yeah, and then with the other members of our alliance, like Biggs and Groggy, and a couple other people, are so low that their people can't hit them. So it's kind of humorous because it's like, our lower, newer players are not affected.
Yeah, which is one of the things that Nooms and I discussed before we decided to take action was, is this going to interfere with our younger, newer players to the game being able to develop and grow in their fragile levels into the game? And then we realized their lowest person is too high to even hit our people other than me and Nooms. So I was like, well, that's not a consideration at all then.
Unless Biggs doesn't do what I said and keeps leveling too quickly. Then he'll end up accidentally part of it.
You've given him your advice, and it's up to him to take it or not. I mean,
since he's here, I'll harass him yet again about it.
He gonna play the way he gonna play, man.
He is.
All right, and so this week was Gerg's first week in public school ever. He started 9th grade on Monday. We've got Rain joining us. She's here native in Discord on our Discord server. And Big says
so
he's on vacation?
He is. The factory is shut down for 2 weeks at least.
Excuse me.
Due to the COVID outbreak in Malaysia has affected their ability to get parts again. So
specifically chips, right? Microchips?
I don't know if this
chips?
one is the chips or if it's a different part from Malaysia. I don't know what I didn't read what part it was, and I didn't ask him.
Okay.
I just
Big says in game too, like you're in the game right now too, or you're on vacation in the game too.
I think he's taking a vacation from the game, maybe.
Breaking systems. Oh, it's part of the braking systems for the cars.
Oh, okay. I was trying to equate that back to in-game. I was like, we don't got brakes. Who needs brakes?
Who needs brakes when you're traveling at warp and subspace? You don't need to brake. Right. So, like I said, it was Gerg's first week ever in public school, and it has been quite mentally straining on the boy. But he's a trooper. He made it through his first week unscathed. Actually, it wasn't Monday through Friday. It was just Tuesday through Friday. And Tuesday, his first day, I get a call from the nurse at the school. You know, our kids are homeschooled, you know, and they rarely ever saw anybody. So we didn't put a lot of emphasis on immunizations. They got their baby immunizations, and then they got a few here or there as, you know, as they're growing up. So we get a call from the school nurse. Hey, your son is missing 4 immunizations that technically we shouldn't have even enrolled him. So there's a clinic running right now in your town, and I'm going to need you to go ahead and take him to that clinic and get those immunizations, or I'm going to have to unenroll him. And I was like, great. So day 1 of school at 2:15 in the afternoon, I had to go pull him out of school, drive him across town, get him 4 immunizations, and then take him back to school for his last period. So that was a very eventful day.
I just find it funny. It's like, and I was actually on the phone with you when it happened, and it was like, they were like, well, no, you need to do it right now. He's legally not even allowed to be here. And you're like, oh, nice. Okay. Good job not catching that.
Right, because when we tried to enroll him, they were like, oh, he's missing his meningitis. That's okay. You can just go get that, and then we'll have no problem. And I was like, okay, meningitis, that's all? Yeah, that's the only thing he's missing. And then first day of school, the school nurse was going over all the enrollment records and was like, oh, why did they enroll this person without him getting all of his immunizations? I don't know what's going on. But the whole enrollment process was like that. It was like, do this, and then we do that, and they go, oh, no, you've done something wrong. You've got to do this, and then we'll do that. And they were like, oh, no, you missed this hoop. And we were like, oh, we'll jump through that hoop. And then they were like, oh, no, you still didn't get all the hoops. You need to jump through this hoop. And so we were jumping through all these hoops, and Gerg, come here, Gerg.
Do I have to?
We do. Gerg had...
I walked in on the wrong time.
Gerg had to get 5 immunizations in all to catch up to be able to go to public school. My baby.
My alarm system...
I know if you listen to the podcast, you can't see him, but... Your alarm system what?
Says that someone's at the door. But there's no one at the door. No. See, look. There's the door. No one at the door.
Huh. Maybe it was an animal or a package delivery, or... It
was probably an animal. It happens.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it was probably the neighbors because they're outside, so their dog must have ran
Have
over.
You seen those videos on TikTok of that dog in that one neighborhood, and he'll come up and jump up and ring the bell and wait? And if they don't come to the door, he'll jump up and ring the bell again and wait. It's one of those ones where you can see the camera. And he just keeps doing it until they come to the door and let him in, and he hangs out with them in their house for several hours before he just wants to go back home again. And then he goes back home. He just comes over, rings the doorbell,
wow,
hangs out.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
Yeah.
If a dog jumps up and starts ringing the doorbell, we're gonna have some conversations with said dog. Yeah, it is true. Sometimes you'll get notification like 2 a.m. and you're like, and you turn it on and everything's dark because the porch lights are off, so it's only like what you can, and you're like, I swear to goodness, if something moves, I'm gonna lose my mind.
When we were on vacation, they had a ring system hooked up to some floodlights pointed at the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And one evening we went out and made s'mores. And the girls were running around, and every time they'd get to a certain point, the floodlights would come on. And I'm like, I bet the owners of this Airbnb are getting really annoyed by all the Ring notifications right now
Mm-hmm.
because we're out here running around trying to make s'mores and have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Luckily my backyard's fenced in, so I don't get any weird notifications from back there. If I get a weird notification in the backyard, that's gonna be one of those moments where you're like,
Give me my pool cue. You're walking out the back door screwing it together.
I actually usually grab the bamboo sword,
Come here, Miranda.
temple sword that someone bought me for Christmas one year.
Yeah?
Typically if I'm gonna go
This is
outside,
my baby girl.
that's what I grab because it won't kill you, but it hurts.
Oh, but it'll do some serious damage.
We both took one shot at each other with it when you bought it for me, and it hurt. And neither one of us went all out.
It swings hard enough to break a bone. It does.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's got the bamboo, and as you swing it, it
Mm-hmm.
moves like this. And so it moves like this, and then when you hit, then it hits. It's nice. All right, so I think we're.
Phoenix says it's the next door neighbor's cat on our porch.
I saw Q, and I was like,
well, she didn't want to give his full name.
With in the game?
He didn't want to give his full name, but
it's their cat. Zadie keeps saying or a demon.
So we have this cat named Tater Tot in the neighborhood.
Tater Tot.
And this is the most evil, like, you know how like everyone, like, cats have demons, like that kind of thing. Like, this is the one that makes you go, yep. Like, it one day walked into my office.
Really?
Yeah, like I opened the door to get something, like a package came, I opened the door and Tater Tot just walked in and looked at me. And I got like kaiju in my office, the cats are sitting around, and in just walks this cat, and I'm like, you're gonna die. Like, get out of my house. So, yeah,
another visitor.
Yeah, it's hello, other visitor.
I ordered a live light and it hasn't come in yet, so they just keep streaming in because whatever. So
yeah, mine get the
get out of here
when they.
Well, I mean, we only have one restroom and it's right there. So
yeah, it's different. I don't have a restroom in my office. There's no reason anyone should be coming in here.
Right. Things are not
other than to bring me a drink.
My office.
Bring me my drink because.
Your sneak drink?
My sneak. Someone brought me my sneak. So.
Cool. All right. So that was our weeks. Now it's time for Get to Know the Pastors. Pastor Nims, it's your week. What does your card read?
I don't know. I dropped it.
Pick it up. Come on, man.
So this is the second card because the first card I decided to read in the pre-show and just wasn't thinking, and I'm just reading it going, oh, that's an interesting that's an interesting question. Yeah. If you could be one of America's most wanted, but wanted for some great skill you possess, what skill would you want to have? That's a weird one.
America's Most Wanted. Like,
so,
that draws up images of, like, a criminal.
I know. We're going to try again. I don't like that one. Oh, this one's like a paragraph. Okay. If you could know one fact about every person you meet, what particular fact would you want it to be? Assume that the other person would not have to be aware that you know the fact when you meet them. So, like, every person you met, above them, it would say something. What would you want it to be?
I mean, we've already answered this one previously. Yeah, for me it was the who's hurt you and in what way, so that I can know if you're reacting out of hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? So you need to draw another card.
I'm putting them in the back when we're done with them.
I think we did but I think that one was in my deck.
Oh, okay.
Let us answer that question.
All right. If you could have the original of anything in the world, what would you want it to be? Assume that you would never be allowed to sell it for money. You must simply enjoy it for what it is.
Original
Mm-hmm.
of anything.
Mm-hmm.
To just enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 There's so many things to think of.
Right?
Like, like, like you could say like the Declaration of Independence, because then when other people are like, you you know, I have this pocket version of the Declaration of Independence I carry with me everywhere. And you're like, I got the original back at the house.
I had the original back at the house under bulletproof glass.
And it doesn't say that you couldn't charge to show people it. It just says you couldn't sell it. But like the first thing that popped into my head would be like candy.
Into my hand.
Would be candy.
Candy?
Yeah.
Candy?
Like the first this ever made. Because you wouldn't ever want to eat it because it's gross. You couldn't sell it, but you would just be like, this is the first one. But why? I don't know. I have it.
Lady says she used to want the house and land that Abraham Lincoln grew up in.
Big says C.S. Lewis's wardrobe.
Well, he says which wardrobes? I think he means Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, like a first edition, maybe?
I think he means the actual wardrobe.
The actual wardrobe that,
right.
like, you should transport yourself to
No. But
it
was based on an actual... Like, when he describes it, he's describing a wardrobe he owned. So I think that's what he means, is that original wardrobe.
Okay.
I can't think of anything that... I mean, now that what Biggs said, maybe, like, one of the first Bram Stoker, like an original copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula, or like an original copy of something like that. That could be pretty cool. I don't have any first edition books. I have one, I think it's a third edition, Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's like a third edition. It's old as snot, but I can't think of anything else.
I can't think of anything at all.
You would want the original TARDIS used on set.
I think it was a piece of crap.
Just saying. I don't know. I can't think of anything that would be like this.
I can't either. But on a side note, Zadie was talking about one Abe Lincoln's land. And then she said before he chopped down the cherry tree. Which then Biggs followed up with, that was George Washington. And the interesting thing is, that's not a true story. It was a story that was made up to distract people from the actual stories of George Washington that were being passed around about how much he loved the Lord and the miracles that God had done in his life. And, yeah. So, anyway, interesting that. Big says 50 years old TARDIS. Well, I have this TARDIS that is the 50th anniversary edition. It's not an original. and it used to be a bauble.
Billiam, get
But,
your finger out of the TARDIS.
Hey,
That's how you lose a finger.
that is how you lose a finger. It really is.
You'll end
Lose a
up in
finger
some
that way.
in disaster. Your finger will end up in some disastrous part of the world.
Or it'll fall into the swimming pool or something. Phoenix says the original helmet that Carrie Fisher and Wicket wore in Star Wars when they shared a sandwich.
Wicket is this is Wicket. Phoenix gave this to me, but this is Wicket.
Oh.
Wicket.
He was an Ewok.
No. He's the most important Ewok.
That still makes him an Ewok, even if he's the most important.
Shh. I'm sorry, I just showed my butt to everybody. That was rude. I didn't think about that because.
Well, since neither one of us can think of something, do we pull another card? Or...
No, we've been through 3. We're done. I'm gonna say a first edition Dracula. To be honest.
You want a first edition Dracula?
I've always loved that story, and I think it was very, very well written.
One of the things that Zadie said was an original of Starry Night by Van Gogh. And I don't know. When I go to museums and I see paintings, I don't feel anything.
I don't feel anything for paintings.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't think I would appreciate a painting, even if it was an original. Zadie also says Jensen Impala, a clear reference to Supernatural.
Yeah, Jensen
Jensen Ackles Impala.
Which I wouldn't want because I'd be too terrified. I could kit a car to look like it, but actually having it, I'd be too much of a train wreck. I would never touch it. I would never drive it. It would just sit somewhere, and I don't think it's worth it.
You know what? I just thought of something that would be cool to have the original of.
Okay.
From Quantum Leap.
Oh my gosh.
In season 2, what's his name? Not Sam, but the hologram guy. Anyway, he gets a new Ziggy. Little Ziggy interface, and it's this little colorful block looking thing that he uses to talk to the future. One of those, the original Ziggy. Just like put it up on my shelf and be like, that's the original Ziggy prop from Quantum Leap. Right?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Phoenix said the guns that the brothers used in Boondock Saints.
Again, I'd be too terrified to use them, and then they would just sit in a box, and it'd be wasteful.
Well, they're prop guns. You wouldn't really... It probably even got orange tips that they then had to go in and digitally edit out.
I don't know. That was pre-Columbine. They might not have. That's the reason why some people have never seen the movie, is because it's pre-Columbine by, just a smidge. Because its release week was the same week, and so most people did not go and see it. Is what I was told. I haven't ever actually checked that, but I've always said it. Okay. I just realized that. That's a fact.
You're just never repeating things you've heard.
Yeah, which I normally don't ever do, and I just thought about that. I've never actually checked that.
All right, I think we're sufficiently warmed up. So, what did we title tonight's episode? I know we workshopped a few titles. Defending the, and then, ellipse. Defending the ellipse. That ellipse, being where we can, as a placeholder, we can put things in. So, you and I were talking about one event in Scripture specifically that we think happened twice, but some commentaries said it only happened once. And it's not so much the details of the event or how many times it happened, but the concept that it portrays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the one event that we were talking about if you guys want to turn to John chapter 2, and we get down to verse 13. I'm going to read out of my CSB because, well, that's what I read out of. The Jewish Passover was near, and so Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found people selling oxen, sheep, and doves, and he also found the money changers sitting there. After making a whip of cords, he drove everyone out of the temple with their sheep and oxen. He also poured out the money changers' coins and overturned the tables. He told those who were selling doves, "Get these things out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace." And his disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." All right. So Jesus shows up on the Passover, and there's some debate about whether or not this is the same event talked about in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Although so one side says this happened at the first Passover after Jesus was baptized, and that the other event recorded by Matthew, Mark, and Luke happened on the Monday before he was crucified. And then there are other commentaries that say that John tells the story out of order, and they believe it's the same event. And they're not wrong. John does tell things out of order, but we don't know. Contextually, it feels like John is saying that this happened that first Passover after his baptism. But even I've preached that, John makes a point of not putting things in the correct order because the order didn't matter. What mattered was proving that Jesus fulfilled the signs that needed to be fulfilled to prove he was the Messiah. Mm-hmm. That was the point of John's gospel all the way through, was this is the Messiah, and here's the evidence.
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter if it happened once or twice. The fact is that Jesus comes to Jerusalem, and I'm gonna read between the lines here for you. He found people selling oxen, sheep, and doves. Okay. So when a Passover would happen, Jews would come in from all over the place. I'm not going to say all over the world, because there were no Jews like in North America yet. That wasn't a thing at this point in time. I know the Mormons say there were, and they can say that all they want. I need some archaeological evidence of that to buy into that, but I'm not going to say they weren't there. It could have happened, but I've never seen any archaeological evidence to back that up. Anyway, they would come from all over the, let's say, known world to celebrate Passover in Jerusalem. And they would have all this foreign currency, and they would be coming from far, far away. And there were certain personal sacrifices that needed to be made. And traveling this distance, it became difficult for them to bring the oxen, the sheep, and the doves that they needed to bring. And so as an allowance for them to come and still make these sacrifices required by Jewish law, they set up a system where people could sell their sacrificable oxen, sacrificable sheep, and sacrificable doves, and this became a normal thing. And they started out doing it outside of the temple, and it was out in the streets, and eventually it became centralized, and then they started moving it into the temple to make it easier for everyone, so it wasn't crowding the streets, and so that the Gentiles that were coming through didn't have to worry about it, kind of hide it from the Romans. So I kind of been out of sight, out of mind type of thing. So, it's understandable how they got to where they got, where they were doing this inside the temple and selling the sheep and selling the doves and selling the oxen. The problem is that they then weren't respecting the temple anymore. They had diminished the value of the temple, right? And not only that, but then the money changers were in there too. And so there's a few things going on here. One, like I said, they're bringing foreign currency in from all over the world. And the money changers are there, and they're exchanging the money so that people can buy their sacrifice. However, they're turning a profit off of exchanging that money.
Yep.
Right? So they're making a profit in the temple off of the people that are then needing to buy their sacrifices to make their sacrifices. And there's even records that they took it a step further. They would loan money to people who came into town from out of town and basically give them what amounts to a payday loan. You know, payday loans are either like 700% interest. And it's illegal under Jewish law to charge interest to another Jew, period. But they were. They were giving these loans to people who didn't bring money, who needed to buy a sacrifice, and charging them absorbent interest amounts, and setting that all up inside the temple, right? So Jesus makes this whip out of cords, and he goes in and he drives them all out. Newman's and I were talking about this. We agree, we fully agree that we believe some people got hit, not just oxen and sheep. But there's some debate. Some other people believe that Jesus would never hit another person with a whip. And so they believe that he only used the whip to drive out the oxen and sheep. And the other people ran too because they were afraid. The Bible doesn't say either way specifically.
Yeah,
it can specifically say that someone got hit.
It can kind of be taken a little bit both ways.
Right.
I've always been taught he drove them out and drove.
Me too. That's what I've always been taught.
Drove is that word that you use when you are hurting people. The pushing them, you know. And so there is some thought process. I personally believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the point there, you know, is not did he hit someone, did he not hit someone? At least that's not the point of tonight.
No.
The point of tonight is he drove them out of the temple, whether you say he hit people or not. That drove is the word they use. He drove the oxen and the sheep and the doves out. He told the people selling the doves to get out of there and stop making the Father's house into a marketplace. He did all of this in defense of the temple, of this holy place, and of the people that were being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
By the money changers and by the people who were selling the sacrifices. And Biggs brought up a good point. If I'm sitting there trying to make a profit and you come up and you're flipping my tables, I'm trying to get my profit, and I might get hit by that whip. I'm probably going to get hit by that whip while I'm trying to grab my profit that you're flipping my tables on.
A good Ferengi would sacrifice to get that gold.
A good Ferengi. We're not Ferengi here.
Oh, I get confused. I'm sorry.
This is a human activity, not a Ferengi activity.
Oh, okay. I'm back.
And if you're listening and you haven't been following along, in the Star Trek game that Nooms and I play, we are in an alliance where we are role-playing as Ferengi from Star Trek. And so everything's about profit, everything's about, you know, making a deal, it's a lot of fun to pretend to be a Ferengi. And there's a lot of these people in this game that are like, guys, you are clowns. This is ridiculous. We're just trying to play a game. And we're like, yeah, we're just trying to play a game. It's fun.
Yeah, we have definitely taken it too far sometimes, and it is funny. Every day I say, I wish you all a profitable day.
I wish you all a profitable day. That one guy this morning was like, I would profit, but somebody keeps hitting my ships. And we're like, yep, that's us. The guys in your ships.
I'm profiting. All
All
right,
right.
back on track. Sorry.
So that's the one event I wanted to talk about. Did you have anything you wanted to add to what I said there about this event in particular?
So the big thing for me with that event and then the subsequent possible event where it's done again um, is the point of, you know, Jesus did it not just. Oftentimes people portray it. He got angry because they were defiling the temple, and he got angry because they made it a market. But in that, making a profit off of religion um, is always something I've had a problem with, mainly because of this. Um, because it's not, we shouldn't be making a profit like, hi, I raised this sheep, it's worth 10 gold,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell it for 12.
Paul said he had every right to earn
Yeah.
pay
Yes.
for bringing the gospel. But in most cases, he refused to be paid because he wasn't sharing the gospel to get money.
Yeah. There's a difference between feed me, clothe me, place me somewhere, which in this culture it's not. In modern day it's a little harder, which is why we typically pay salaries to our pastors and teachers and such. But it definitely there are some people who have taken it way too far in time, and it's definitely something that makes Christianity look really, really bad. Um,
Yeah.
so that's my whole thing is we can't take advantage. You shouldn't be taking advantage of people of, oh yeah, I'll pray for you if you pay me. Hey, I'll things like that is just it's too much. And yeah, I know you need to sacrifice, but you got to pay an admit and no, a fee to get in the building. Things like that is just it's crazy. And if Jesus was walking the earth in a physical form, he'd be flipping your tables. So don't do that. Don't do it.
Yeah. I'm just double checking that other event in Matthew, Mark, and Luke right quick.
Mm-hmm.
See if I have anything else to add.
There's not so much detail in that one. There are no. I believe
No,
if
there
I'm
isn't.
if I'm believing correctly, from where I looked a couple hours ago, um, there's no oxen mentioned in those ones, and there's no whip. And people that believe that it was two separate events believe it's because he didn't need the whip because there weren't oxen. Because you can't, you can you can release doves easily. You don't need a whip for that. You can't move oxen without without something. But there are those people who believe it's one event, as we mentioned in the beginning. It's kind of debated in Christian circles a little. I've always been taught and believed two events, but that's me. Because they're different enough to make you wonder.
They are pretty different.
Yeah. Because one specifically talks about Passover, and if I'm not mistaken, the other three do not. From when I was reading them before.
Also, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus stays in the temple and has teaching and healing sessions. And in John, he immediately goes out and they ask him about what authority he's doing it, driving them out. and he answers them, and then they move on. There's no mention in John of him
Yeah.
staying and preaching and healing people in the book of John.
I've always thought 2 events. There are some scholars that don't, but
Yeah.
not that I would classify myself
The,
as a scholar, but I don't believe that way.
The chronology that I have, that I have saved on my iPad, says that the one in John is about a year and a half after his baptism.
Mm-hmm.
And the one in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it dates as the Monday before his crucifixion, which would be, 2 years, 3 years later, something like that.
Yeah.
And side note, I find it interesting that when they talk about the temple, they say, we built this temple for 46 years. And, right? And then it says, but Jesus was talking about the temple of his body. 46 years, right? And when Jesus goes out into the desert to be tempted, he's there for 40-something days and nights. We just say 40 days and nights because it kind of fits with the, the flood theme. But it doesn't actually say 40 days and nights. It says 40-something days and nights. Which then leads some scholars to believe that Jesus was 46 when he was crucified. And that he was born much earlier than Caesar Augustus thought, and crucified later than some calendars have placed it.
Yeah, not everything is 100% dated well.
Yeah, like we know almost for certain that Jesus was not born in the year 1 AD. He is most likely born in early 6 AD or early 8 AD, somewhere in between there. BC. 6 BC or 8 BC, not 80.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna
6
wait
to
for you to
8
finish
years.
before I.
Yeah. 6 to 8 years earlier than Caesar Augustus thought when he created our current calendar. So even to say, people who hold on to the BC means before Christ, and AD means ad hominem, meaning, after Christ or after incarnation, something like that. Well, okay, but they're wrong. That's the whole calendar system's wrong. So you don't have to hold on to that anymore. You can say before Common Era, and you can say Common, CE and BCE. That's fine because the calendar's wrong. He wasn't born in 1 AD.
Yeah, it's always hard with historical dates past a certain point before we had, standard time, because it gets real fuzzy sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I don't like having dentures.
I know you
when
don't.
you have teeth and you have a cough drop in your mouth, it pretty much stays where you want it to be.
Yeah. Yep.
With dentures, I just took a drink of my tea and accidentally swallowed my cough drop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the teeth aren't there in the right place to hold it in place. Okay, so the other event that we were going to look at over the next 6 minutes or so, if you'll turn to John chapter 8. Now, we want to be fully transparent on this show, We want to be Bereans. We want to lay everything out. John chapter 7, verse 53 through John chapter 8, verse 11 does not exist in the oldest manuscripts that we have access to. The oldest manuscripts they found, John chapter 7 ends in verse 52, and John chapter 8 verse 1 is what modern Bibles have marked as verse 12 in John chapter 8, where it says, Jesus spoke to them again, I am the light of the world. Anyone who follows me will never walk in the darkness, but will have light of life. Now, the younger manuscripts that we found all have them.
Now, real quick, is that why in the NASB and the CSB there's brackets around that whole section?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the younger manuscripts, all the younger manuscripts that we have it. And more younger manuscripts have it than older manuscripts who don't. And that's the defining marker for, do we keep it in our modern Bibles or not? Is what is the majority of manuscripts we have. And in this case, the majority of manuscripts have it, but they're all the younger manuscripts. The oldest ones don't have it. So one of two things happened. Either A, it got added because someone remembered it happened, or someone thought it should be in there because it shows an aspect of Jesus that they know to be true, or they just wanted it to be there. You know, it got added for some reason. Or B, it got removed because someone didn't like what it said, and then after a certain amount of time, someone realized it had been removed and put it back in. Because we don't have the originals, right? We have copies of copies of copies of copies, probably 7 iterations removed from the original is the oldest manuscript we have. And so we're talking, you know, it was written and then it was copied and copied and copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. That's the oldest we have. Okay? So, full disclosure, this may not have ever happened. Now, there are people who talk about the inerrancy of the Bible, and if it's in there, then it happened because the Bible's perfect, and yada, yada. Okay. We can speak to that, and personally, anything made by a human, even inspired by God, cannot be perfect. Period. Even anything Jesus did while he was on the earth wasn't quote-unquote perfect. If it was, then little Jesus Carpenter as a teenager would be making tables that we'd still have today, because they'd be perfect. And those perfect tables wouldn't degrade, and they'd still be standing, and we'd still have them, and we could point to them and go, you see that table? Jesus made that table. It's perfect because he was God. All right. Anyway. Does that make sense?
I know what you mean, but I could see where someone might take it a different way.
All I'm saying is, this is a human book that contains divine wisdom.
Yes.
This is not a God-written book that is perfect.
It's an inspired, God-breathed,
yes,
but not necessarily.
Right. And it has to be breathed through human beings.
Yeah.
Who then add their own slant on things and their own experiences and their own interpretations of what God wants and wants to say, right?
Which is why we have situations like Paul saying, well, Peter's wrong on this part. And you're like,
right.
But you both wrote half of the same book.
And Peter's saying, now, I don't understand the things that Paul's preaching, but he's got some good stuff over there.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right. So we're starting in John chapter 7, verse 53. Then each one went to his house. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn he went to the temple again, and all the people were coming to him. He sat down and began to teach them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery, making her stand in the center. Teacher, they said to him, this woman was caught in the act of committing adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? They asked us to trap him in order that they might have evidence to accuse him. Jesus stooped down and started writing on the ground with his finger. When they persisted in questioning him, he stood up and said to them, the one without sin among you should be the first to throw a stone at her. Then he stooped down again and continued writing on the ground. When they heard this, they left one by one, starting with the older men. Only he was left, and the woman in the center. When Jesus stood up, he said to her, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, Lord, she answered. Neither do I condemn you, said Jesus. Go from now on and do not sin anymore. Right? So they bring this woman who was caught in adultery. Cool. Except the law also requires the man to be brought and put to death as well. There's no man brought. This is part of the trap, right? And Jesus, instead of condemning the woman and instead of focusing on her sins, I mean, he does say go and sin no more, right? He stands in defense of her against this mob of men that are wanting to kill her, because the law says she should be killed. The Old Testament demands that she be killed, right? And there's lots of things that the Old Testament demands be killed for breaking the law, right? In Leviticus, men who lay with men, women who lay with women, women who lay with animals, men who lay with animals, men who gather firewood on the Sabbath, men who wear women's clothes to get out of going to war, women who wear men's clothes to go to war. What are the other things that are death penalty wise? Offering incense to the Lord when you're not a Levite, offering an incense that you made yourself, not using the prescribed incense that God gave to Moses. I mean, we can go on and on and on, all the things that the Old Testament says this person must die, right? And in this situation, Jesus says, wait a second, this is a human being. And no, I don't require her death, because none of you are perfect. And that stuff that was written in the Old Testament, maybe it was true then. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say maybe that was what God wanted. Because once again, those are Moses's interpretations of what God wanted. Right? And Jesus says, well, if you're so blameless, then go ahead and kill her. But if any of you have sin, ain't gonna happen. Not by my command, right? So he stands up in defense of this person that he knows is sinning. She was caught in adultery, straight up, caught in the act. She's guilty. And Jesus stands up in her defense. Despite what the law says, despite what the cultural norm was, despite what everyone around them thought was right. And then he tells her, I don't condemn you either. And yet, so often, the church and its members condemn people because we deem them guilty. When Jesus says, I don't condemn you for that. Now, go live your life and don't give in to the things that are sabotaging you. Don't do things that cause an angry mob to pull you out on the street and demand you to be killed. Right? And leaves it in her hands. You make the decision. What are you going to do? I don't condemn you for what you're doing. And I'll stand in your defense against people who do condemn you. And that's the other point I wanted to bring up in this, in defense of. Jesus stands in defense. Not because they asked him to. He stands in defense of those who need to be defended. Right? He stands up for what's right in defense of others. And that's all I have for tonight.
So the other two big things that are death penalties are being disrespectful to your parents and having a spirit of divination. Not completing divination, not practicing divination, but having a spirit of divination were death penalties as well. And then the Lord's name in vain and some of the other ones you listed.
So having a spirit of divination would be pursuing the magical arts, pursuing
that term spirit
manipulation of the spirit. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Pursuing manipulation of the spirit. Yeah.
But I think it's real important, the grace aspect is extremely important. And then, we were talking earlier about the go and sin no more. And how, that word there used is not go and don't break the commandments. It's the same word that's used throughout the New Testament, which is go and be perfect. Don't miss the mark. So it's not, when Jesus said it, he knew it's not possible what he was saying. He was saying it's more go, try to be better, not go be perfect, because you can't. And I think that's something we definitely have to always look at and always view is what is perfect, what is sin, what is, but more importantly, grace and love. So, that's my part.
Nice. I like it. I'm just flipping through these Greek words here in 8:11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's fun.
I also like the story of the bending down and the getting up. That Greek word can also mean to look up. So he literally could have just gone, and then kept writing when he looked up. It wasn't necessarily a stand up. That word can mean either. And
yeah, look up. Anak upso.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like. I usually like the way the CBS beat, phrases things, but in the KJV here, I kind of like the way it translates 8:9. And they which heard it being convicted by their own conscience.
Yeah.
Went out one by one. The CSB translation there loses some when it says, when they heard this, they left one by one. So like we were talking about last week, the King James version has a very poetic feel to it because that was the focus, We're writing a work of poetry. Anyway, so that's all I have for tonight. Join us live on Sundays if that's your cup of tea at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. You can go to our website, ekk.house, to find out which Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube you can find us at. And then you can see us live recording and be a part of the conversation live in the chat. Also, this podcast goes out every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. unless we don't record one live on Sunday night. That does happen sometimes. Real life happens. And so that comes out anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We do have it set to syndicate out to all podcast host providers, which is actually not that hard, but it sounds impressive. But it probably took me about an hour to set up one day when I was doing it. Set everything up, and so I'm like, it's not that hard.
It's one of those where it's like, they've really done a good job of making this easy.
They really did. The hardest part was submitting episodes to Apple for them to go through and make sure that we weren't violating any of their standards before they would let us post on Apple, which even that, it wasn't really that bad. They made it sound worse than it really ended up being. But so come join us on a Sunday evening and enjoy the podcast if you are. And that's what we have for this week. So have a good week.
Stay safe out there.
I forgot. 30-second buffer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. Has it been 30 seconds yet?
No.
Of course not. That's not how time works. 30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. 30-second buffer. I love you guys. Have a great week. And then now you're supposed to say...
All right, guys. Be safe.
Yes, and then I say, until next time.